Okay, in this lesson I would like to show everyone how to use everything we have learned so far to solve geometry problems. So everything we have learned so far, including the parallel lines, transversal lines, alternate angles, corresponding angles, co-interior angles, and vertically opposite angles and everything, okay? And we're going to combine everything we have learned to solve geometry problems. Alright, just a little recap of everything we have learned. Okay, now first thing we have learned is when we're talking about geometry problems, the first very important one is the vertically opposite angles. So if we have two straight lines that intersect at each other, then we can create two vertically opposite angles, or actually two pairs. So these two, and then the pair here, they are equal to each other. Alright, so all of them are equal to each other. So vertically opposite, this is called vertically opposite angles. And then vertically opposite angles are equal to each other. Alright. Now, the second one is something called complementary angles. So it's when you have a 90-degree angle, like straight angle, and this straight angle is broken down into smaller angles inside, and then we have one angle here and another angle there. These two angles add together equals to 90 degrees because we know that that is a right angle. Okay, that is a right angle here, so we call that complementary angles. And then complementary angles add together equals to 90 degrees. Alright, so the next one is called supplementary angles. It's when we have a straight angle, which is 180 degrees, and this angle is broken into two or more angles, and we call that supplementary angles, because supplementary angles, when they add together, is equal to 180 degrees. So complementary angles add together is equal to 90 degrees, and the supplementary angles add together is equal to 90 degrees, 180 degrees. Alright, supplementary angles. And then when we add all these angles together, it is equal to 180 degrees. Alright, then in last lesson we have learned something, three special pair of angles in parallel lines. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little recap before we move on to the actual equations, actual problem solving question. So two parallel lines, one transversal, and then I'm just going to do all three kinds together. Alright, then the first type we get is these two angles are equal to each other, and we call that corresponding angles. Next one is these two, or the other two, like here and there, as long as it's like a Z, alright? Then it's called alternate angles. They are also equal to each other. Alright, so corresponding angles are equal on parallel lines, alternate angles are equal on parallel lines, and the last one is the co-interior angles. They're not equal to each other, by the way, okay? They're supplementary to each other. So co-interior angles, alright, which is equal to 180 degrees, and all of these two, okay? This time, how about I'm just right here, corresponding angles are equal. On parallel lines, remember, it must be parallel lines, okay? So these two lines must be parallel to each other. And same as this one here. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Alright, so this is just a little recap of everything we have learned so far. Alright, we're going to try some geometry questions, alright? So I'm just going to put first an example here. Example 1. How do we solve some simple geometry question? Alright. The first example is the question, it's a really interesting question, alright? It's like this, we have 1, 2, alright, and these two lines are parallel to each other. And then we have another line here, it goes that direction there. Okay, so here's the question. So say, for example, these two lines are parallel to each other. And then we know the angle here is 110 degrees. And this angle here is unknown. Let's just call this as x. And then we know that angle here is 60 degrees. Okay. All right. Now, question asks you to find the value of x. Find x. All right. How do we solve this question here? Now, it looks like a parallel line question. All right. Very, very similar to a parallel line question. So how do we solve it then? I guess the first thing you need to do is maybe we need to add some lines, right? We need to add one more line before we can do this question here. So I guess the line we need to add is this line here. I want to add another line that is parallel to both lines, right? So I'm just going to add a line here. Unfortunately, this line is not parallel to each other, to all the lines. So I'm going to try it one more time. All right. Okay. So that's the best I can do. Now, these three lines are all parallel to each other. Okay. So that creates a really interesting thing here. All right. Now, let's look at the angle on the bottom. I'm just going to use a different color. This angle here looks like a Z, right? That Z is an alternate angle. So if this is equal to an alternate angle, then that angle here, I'm just going to color in that angle here must be 60 degrees, right? Because these two must be equal to each other, right? Alternate angles are equal on parallel lines. Then you start to think about the angle here. What is that equals to? Now remember, all of this combined together, all of this angle combined together is equal to 110 degrees. This is what the question gave it to you, right? 110 degrees. I'm just going to redraw the diagram here. Here is 110 degrees. So if one of the angle here is 60, then the other angle there must be 110 minus 60, right? It would be 110 minus 60, which is equal to 50 degrees. So then tells you that the angle here is 50 degrees. All right, 50 degrees. Now, if you look at that, we have another alternate angles. All right, which tells you that x must be also equal to 50 degrees. And that's how you solve for x. All right, x is equal to 50 degrees. Due to the reason of we can break down that 110 degree angle into two angles. One angle is equal to 60, the other one is 50, so therefore you got your answer. So that's a really interesting question here. All right, very, very interesting. All right, so let's try another one. All right, let's do an example 2. Now remember, you are going to use everything that you have learned so far to solve some geometry questions. They are all geometry questions. All right, so you're going to find a way to solve those geometry questions. All right, so I'd like to show you how to do another question. All right, so say again, we have a shape like this. Now, these two lines are parallel to each other. All right, so that's another very interesting question here. That angle here is 3x. Let's say it's 3x degrees. Okay, and then the angle here is 60 degrees. Now here comes the question. How do we know what's x? All right, the question still asks you to find the value of x. Find x degrees. Now what do we do? All right, so when we look at this question, the first thing you need to pay attention to is what sort of angles do we have here? That looks like a C. All right, that looks like a C. So that's co-interior angles. So that means if you look at the previous one, co-interior angles add together equals to 180 degrees. All right, so that should tell you that 3x plus 60 is equal to 180 degrees. Now you're solving an equation. All right, so how do we solve this equation here? All we have to do is using the balancing method right now. So we minus both sides by 60 degrees. All right, it's an equation. If we take away 60 both sides of the equation, then the answer will be the same. So we get 3x is equal to 180 minus 60 is 120 degrees. And then 3 times by x, 3 times by number is equal to 120, then that x must be 40, because 3 times by 40 is 120. All right, so that's how you find the second answer. All right, so that's an example 2. All right, let's do a few more examples. All right, so example 3. Again, geometry question. All right, let's do a few more. How about let's do something that's a bit hard now. So I'm just going to draw a diagram. It's a pretty interesting one. And here is the question. All right, so this is the condition. We've got 2 parallel lines here. We've got a 90 degrees there. We have 70 degrees and an 140. The question asks you to find the value here. All right, that's what the question asks you to do. Whew, how do we do this one? All right, now before we do this question, I think we need to add a few more lines. All right, I need to add a line here. I need to add a line there. And those lines are all parallel to each other. All right, very important. They are parallel to each other. Okay, all right, so those are simple for parallel lines. Now, I'm just going to do it step by steps, all right? So we'll start with the first C. It looks like I've got a C here. Now remember, you can turn this around and to form a C. Once you know this is C, then I should be able to work out the value of this angle, and that should be 40 degrees. Now, hopefully you remember that 140 plus 40 is 180. Co-interior angles add together equals to 180 degrees. That's called supplementary angles, right? So that's 40, because that's 140. So therefore, when you add it, it's equal to 40. Now, what we need to know is if we can find the angle here, then we should be able to find that reflex angle by using a revolution angle, all right? So we need to look at this side now. So how do we know this angle? How do we find this angle here? Well, I can find this angle by looking at a Z. Like this, all right, is it? So that's 70 degrees here, all right, which means our 10 angles must be equal on parallel lines. So here is equal to 70. Now, do you remember this entire angle is actually 90 degrees? Do you remember that? That's 90 degrees. So therefore, the remaining angle on this side must be equal to, I'm using a different color, must be equal to 20 degrees, right? That must be 20 degrees. All right, so once we get the 20 degrees, then we have another alternate angles, all right? I'm not really sure if you can see it, but we have another alternate angle here, all right? Which tells you that angle here must be 20 degrees, okay? All right, so finally we can start to find the missing angle, which is this angle here. So how do we do it? Well, it's a 360 revolution minus 40 degrees here, minus 20 degrees there, right, to work out that reflex angle. And then after you do the calculation, the reflex angle should be equal to 300 degrees. That's how you solve this question. All right, very interesting. All right, it's a hard question here, but it's really interesting that you are using so many properties in parallel lines. So you have one alternate angles. So I'm just going to write it here. So one co-interior angles, and I'm going to color code it. And then we've got alternate angles in this color. And we have another alternate angles, all right, in green. And then we have something that we're using the whole revolution, angle of a revolution, which is 360 degrees. We use all of these property to solve the question, all right? And then obviously we're solving for the reflex angle. All right, okay, so hopefully these 3 examples give you some idea about how to solve geometry questions. What you need to do is to add some lines, add some parallel lines, and then do the question step by steps. All right, in my future lessons, I'm going to teach you more harder questions. Make sure you subscribe my channel. All right, thank you.